Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Triangle Offense. I'm Munish, and as always, I'm joined by Nishant. On today's episode, we'll talk about the two playoff games. It was round two of this first round of playoffs. Game two of the first round of playoffs. What am I talking? The Denver Nuggets blazed the Trailblazers, and the Milwaukee Bucks are out for revenge. They cold-bloodedly smashed the Miami Heat. The game was over in the first quarter itself. And we'll talk all about these games today. We'll start off with the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat because that was the first game that happened. And the Milwaukee Bucks looked like they were on par, or they were on course to beat all the three-pointer records today. They got 15 in the first half. The playoff highest the playoff highest is 26 in a game. They looked on course to beat that. The regular season highest is 29, which was the Milwaukee Bucks' own record against the Miami Heat earlier in the season. It's just that they chilled in the second half. They needed that rest.
Yeah.
And the fourth quarter was just garbage time, and that's why they did not beat any of those records. This is a different look. This is a different looking Milwaukee Bucks, don't you think? I mean, compared to last season, compared to the year before that, they look like they have multiple areas where they can change the game, flip the game, not just dependent on Giannis. I know Giannis went off for 31 points, and as usual, he got his usual numbers. But if you notice today, they got a lot of players scoring. They got Brian Forbes scoring. They got Chris Middleton scoring. They got Pat Connaughton going off the bench as well. This Milwaukee Bucks unit looks really dangerous, don't they?
Even more so now with the kind of bench contributions that they got. But they were building up to this throughout the season. We discussed how at the start of the season they actively looked to involve to try and win games as much as possible without involving Giannis much on the offense.
Yep.
They went to Drew, they involved Connaughton and DiVincenzo and all these guys, and it paid off. They are better prepared this year in the playoffs than they've ever been. Every year prior to this, you got the feeling that these guys were regular season bullies, and in the playoffs, they were kind of clueless. When you have to face off against the same team over and over again, and they have chances to make reads on you and pick you apart, come back and improve on you. They just weren't up to the task. But this is a transformed Bucks team, and I've been saying this for a while now, not too long. If you had asked me even 2 months ago, I would have said Miami will somehow prevail over Milwaukee. But then over the last couple of months, I think they've been inching closer and closer to kind of peak playoff form. And you saw all the right signs. You saw the defense taking shape. You saw spacing and outside scoring. You saw the Brooklyn Nets dare Giannis to take threes, and he sunk threes, and they beat the Nets. So all the right things. I don't think Giannis is a particularly good shooter yet, but at least it's kind of a warning shot to not dare him to shoot. It's one thing to assume he's not going to make contested threes, but just to leave him miles open is a bad idea. Now, look, I think the margin of victory in this game is largely because of that blitz in the first half, and just everyone was sinking threes left, right, and center, and Connaughton went off, and um, when that happens, it's a little too much for Miami. But I think the margin of victory here is a little. It makes it seem better than it is. Not that Milwaukee were in trouble at any point in this game. They were comfortable winners, and I expect them to be for the rest of the series also. But what I mean is, they're not going to shoot like this every game. They might come close, but they're not going to shoot like this every game. And but the Miami Heat were all-time terrible. From their shooting was just completely off. There's not one guy that was shooting it well. Bam had when Bam has less than 50% field goal shooting for most of the game. I think he finished with that. It's a bad night, and you have no chance anyway, let alone when they're sinking like 15 threes in a half and stuff like that. So, but like I said, I think this is a severely depleted Miami Heat team. This is what the Heat should have been last season. I think they way overachieved in the bubble, but this is now more of a rationalized learning curve for all of the young stars. Nothing to panic in Miami. It's just they're overmatched this time by an incredibly well prepared Milwaukee Bucks with a Giannis who's finally ready for the playoffs, with a Chris Middleton who doesn't seem to be falling prey to nerves anymore. It's only 2 games in, but let's see. So far, so good. And with the Drew Holiday, who's always built for the playoffs, defense and offense. Got a great support squad around them. All of them defend. That's the best part. These are not just spacing monsters and spot up shooters. Every one of them offers defense. That's what makes this Bucks team so lethal in the playoffs. I'm excited. I hope we get that Brooklyn Milwaukee matchup in the second round. That'll be interesting.
Exactly. I mean, when you have someone like Giannis in the team, you don't expect the team to attempt 53 threes in a game. They
Yeah.
attempted 53 threes in a game and scored 22 of them. So pretty good, good numbers. They would have broken all the records, like I said, if it was not for the fourth quarter where they relaxed quite a bit. But what Miami Heat? I mean, when you have your top two scorers score 16 and 10, top two players score 16
Yeah.
and 10, you're not going to win the game. Bam got 16, Butler got 10, and it's game over. Butler doesn't look like the Jimmy Butler we know, right? I mean, he was playoff Butler last time around. He said even this time, you take me to the playoffs, I'll take you there. But he doesn't look like the kind of player he was last season. What's wrong with the Miami Heat?
No, I think all around all year they've been suffering with intermittent injuries and players coming on and off. Nobody had a career-ending injury as such, but they've been suffering throughout the season with fitness issues, and they, much like the Lakers, had a grueling full season. I mean, the Lakers won, so there's some glory attached, but both the teams played the same number of games. Miami some more, in fact, if you count the
Yep.
playoffs. Excuse me. So it took its toll on them, and I think it's showing. And I think it's showing in the older guys. Dragic, Butler, uh, had fitness issues, and they don't have that buffer, scoring hustle and defense of Jay Crowder. That's a big miss. We called that out before the
Right.
series began. Right. That's a luxury to have on the bench, coming off the bench. So all in all, like, they're just overmatched. I wouldn't read too much into it. Butler, a lot of it's like this, right? Jokic gets a bunch of assists every match, but if MPJ shoots 1 for 10, then it's going to affect
Yeah.
Jokic's assist tally also, right? And it's
Right.
a bit like that with Butler shooting and Dragic, because what we praised the Miami Heat for last season was all of them move exceptionally well off the ball. And because they do, and because they're so mobile and dynamic all the time, shifting shapes, they find the defense caught off guard multiple times.
Right.
And they have this knack of always swinging the ball around to the right guy, the guy with the highest percentage shot. And that helps everyone get points on the board. It helps Dragic shoot better. It helps Hero get his shot off. It helps Duncan Robinson get set shots that are high percentage conversions. And it in all this, it also helps clear the lane for Jimmy Butler to drive in and finish
Mm-hmm.
strong, or to draw a double team and dish it to Bam. Right, all of these things get affected the moment that chemistry is gone, that movement is gone, and everyone's having a bad game. Then it's gonna show on everyone's stats. Uh,
Right.
So Butler's numbers can't be looked at in isolation. Yes, he's not having a great series. He's not willing his impact onto the series. Though at least they took the first game to overtime. Credit to him.
Yep.
But but yeah, so these struggles are going to continue. I think it's just a bad. It's going to be a bad postseason for the Miami Heat. They should just go back, reset, and come back next season.
Yeah, they tried their best, didn't they? I mean, they tried to rile Giannis up, but he looked locked. He looked
Yeah.
like I'm not going to get into this battle. It's my game. I'm going to play football while you
Yeah.
fight it out. That was pretty cool from Giannis, I thought. You think it's all over for Miami Heat? Because if there's one team that I would not think who would fold in and throw in the towel, I think it's the Miami Heat. I think they'll come back all guns blazing. When especially at home right now. What do you think? Or is it game over? Is it going to be like over in 4?
I don't think they'll give up. And I don't think they have given up. But it's just they're not good enough. It's not going to happen. They can fight for some respect. Maybe achieve a smaller margin of defeat, but defeat is imminent. I think this looks increasingly like it's headed for a sweep. Their best case scenario seems to be a gentleman's sweep. Maybe they nick one game, but Bucks in 5 worst case scenario.
Yeah, talking about riling up, guess who was riled up today? Nikola Jokic. I
Yeah.
didn't see that coming. It was quite a feisty affair, wasn't it? The Nuggets and the Trailblazers. 4 technicals, 2 flagrants given, but Jokic and Dame had a brilliant game. I mean, it was a game worthy of a playoff, if I could call it that.
Shootout.
Dame went off. He scored 9 threes,
Yeah.
8.5,
Yeah.
and Jokic went off scoring 38 points himself as well. He got 5 assists compared to the one that he got in the first game. MPJ went off, got a few shots. He scored 18. Millsap went off. Surprisingly, he got 15. Gordon went off. So it was pretty much
Yeah.
well distributed scoring that kind of secured the game for the Nuggets here. Whereas if you looked at the Portland Trailblazers bench, none of them got in double digits. I think Carmelo with 5 was the highest of the bench. So that kind of decided the game there itself, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, nobody plays defense. That's why all these guys are scoring. But nobody in this entire series plays defense. That continues from game one, and it's going to be the same for the rest of the series. But this is exactly what we said after game one, just yesterday's episode, right? This is exactly what I said. When Carmelo comes off and gives you 18 off the bench, when
Yep.
when you have a bunch of players in double digits off the bench, that's the out of syllabus sort of element that you can't really prepare for as the Denver Nuggets, and they were caught off guard. This game, they came a little more aggressive, started putting points on the board early. Jokic took even more of a scorer's role.
Right.
MPJ went at it, Campazzo went at it, and the only difference from game one was all of those bench points were not coming in for Portland, and that was the difference. Really, it's a 20 point margin of defeat. By
Yep.
and large, there's nothing drastically different that Denver did in this
Right.
game. Sure, they stepped up the ante a little bit, played a little more aggressive, a less time wasted per possession on the shot clock, got shots off, all of that. But there's no game-changing strategy as such. It was largely the same thing. Portland didn't have the bench scoring that they did in game one. But Lillard, what a performance! I think it's this this performance will just be a stat line in history, and it'll just be a footnote. But to
Right.
anyone who's watched the game, 9 threes in a losing effort, 6 of which came in the second quarter back to back. He didn't miss 8, 6 straight, some
Yep.
deep, some low goal. They were all nothing
Yep.
but net. It was a spectacular display, and to the I think 4 of those 6 were unassisted. It's just straight
Right.
off the dribble, no pick and roll, no screen, just Lillard straight out shooting. Terrific display. Again, I think the Portland Trailblazers are overmatched. I don't think they can take on um, the Nuggets. If they get multiple people to go off from beyond the arc, they can make a fight of it. Maybe nick another game, but this is Nuggets in 5, worst case 6. I think they're too strong for the Trailblazers.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so. I think it was pretty evident today that the Nuggets had a change in strategy. They ensured that, I mean, MPJ had a bad game. It's not like he's a bad player, right? And it kind of averaged out today. He got 3 out of his 6 three attempts, and that kind of decided the game. When you go on a streak like that, and you have Jokic scoring at his highest level, I think you easily secured the game there itself.
When Millsap's
By the
putting
way,
points on the board, it just becomes tough to beat the Nuggets. Millsap of all people.
exactly. And Portland, they have one of the least turnovers in the entire league. They had 20 turnovers today, and that kind of gave it away. I think Dame even had a few turnovers in the first half, which kind of probably riled him up to go after and get those 3 pointers. Knowing the kind of player he is and the kind of personality that is, I think that's probably what triggered those
Yeah.
3 point after 3 point of 3 pointer. The game was well done, but it was him alone who was keeping it alive, and that was fantastic to watch.
Yeah, it's kind of why they don't have too many turnovers. Is maybe because it's just Lillard shooting all the time. You can't really turn the ball over. Yeah, they had an off night. They had an off night, but it should be. I'll be surprised if they take the Nuggets even to 6 games. But 6 is as far as it can even possibly go. Even mathematically, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun series. The series now shifts to Portland where they play
Yeah.
2 games, so they'll have the home court advantage. I think fans are being allowed in now to a higher percentage is being allowed, so that should be a fun game to watch out. Fun games coming up tomorrow as well. The Boston Celtics, Brooklyn Nets. Any chance for the Celtics to cause an upset?
No,
We're not even
absolutely.
going to talk about that, are we?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I think we kind of dismissed them yesterday. Also, I just don't see it happening. Brooklyn would literally have to go to sleep for the Celtics to even make it competitive. It's just not gonna happen. I don't see it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to agree with you there. But the other 2 games are going to be super fun. The Mavs take on the Clippers, part 2. Now, Clippers don't have a good track record of performing well under pressure. They lost the first home game. If they go 2-0 down, it's game over. I mean, if you lost 2 home games, there's no way you're coming back. Or do you still see this going down the stretch?
I saw Paul George hit an air ball in that game. Oh man. Look, plenty of players hit air balls. Steph Curry hits air balls in some matches, but there's just something about it's just become an internet sensation now. Paul George doing these in big games where um it's funny. Look, I don't know what it is with these LA teams, right? It's what it's what I said about the Lakers also. In game one against the Suns, and the Suns played exceptionally well. By no means am I saying they were kind of granted a victory.
Yep.
But the Lakers didn't put up a fight. They could have still lost, but they didn't even bother trying. It was at least the entire first half, both against the Warriors and the Suns. It was Lakers maybe complacent, almost self-entitled, as if hey, it's us. I mean, just give us the W already, and it's not. It's not going to come in. Victories are not going to come like that, and there's just no effort. AD wasn't doing his best on defense. He wasn't picking up. whoever was the offensive threat in the paint. LeBron was doing God knows what on defense, and this is the Lakers. Defense is the bedrock of championship runs for them over the years, including
Mhm.
the squad. And then you see the same with the Clippers, and it's bizarre. What is the one thing the Clippers are known for? Why are they so feared? Last season it was depth. They don't have that kind of depth now. They
Right.
lost both their sixth man of the year candidates. But what is the one thing everyone fears about the Clippers? They have two big, strong wings that can defend 1 through 5. Each of them can
Right.
defend 1 through 5 in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and they are elite. They're
Mhm.
as elite as they come. Paul George is, and Kawhi is even more so.
Right.
Where the fuck is that defense? I mean, you saw this last season. I don't get what it is about Luka. Is he that good that they don't even want to bother trying? Because even last season, he was lighting them up, torching them inside and out.
Yep.
He's driving to the hoop, making people look like a joke while doing it in slow motion. He's pulling up from three. He's not a particularly great three shooter, and he's still
Yeah.
sinking shots, contested. And through all this, who do you see defending him? Pat Bev, Jackson. I mean, where are the two supposed best defenders in the game, the greatest wing defenders the game has seen? Where in the world is Kawhi Leonard? Forget Paul George, couldn't care less. Pandemic P until proven otherwise. Where's Kawhi Leonard, the champion, the two-time Finals MVP, one of which he got only because he defended LeBron in the finals. And LeBron
Mhm.
had spectacular stats. This guy
Yep.
still got Finals MVP because he got them the win. It was enough, whatever he did to contain LeBron. Where is this guy? They don't. It's like they're afraid to take on that assignment of guarding Luka Doncic. And as long as that is true, he's going to continue torching them. I don't even think he'll need Porzingis on offense if this is how
Mhm.
they defend Luka. He has enough shooters. He's going to penetrate, and whenever he sees a tough shot to be made, he'll either find a way to sink it or he'll find the open guy because he's an exceptional passer. They're going to get
Right.
torched at this rate unless Kawhi shows up on defense. Forget what they do on offense. Somebody's got to pick up Luka on defense. It should be Paul George or Kawhi. But at this point, I think nobody cares about Paul George. All eyes are on Kawhi because he's the finals MVP. He's the guy that came in with all the hype into LA. He's the guy that pulled the rug from under the Lakers' feet, kind of left um, Pelinka blindsided, where everyone
Mhm.
thought he was joining the Lakers. And then he goes to the
Right.
Clippers because he wants to do his own thing. Much respect to that. But then you gotta deliver. When you make a high risk, high leverage move like that, you have to deliver because there's a reason it's so high risk. The returns are great, but the pitfall is you slip up ever so slightly and you'll get massacred for it. And that's what's happening right now.
Absolutely. That's going to be a delicious matchup. I can't
Yeah.
wait for the Clippers and the Mavs. And I'm going to be watching that one, whereas I'm sure you'll be watching the Suns versus the Lakers.
No, I'm watching. I couldn't care less about that matchup. I'm Luka against the Clippers. I'm not watching anything else.
The Suns versus Lakers. You think the Lakers have enough to make a comeback tomorrow? I mean, like I've been saying all in the lead up to the playoffs, is that I think the Lakers duo has missed enough games for
Yeah,
them for it to be a problem for them.
sure.
And looking at the stats, the top four in the Phoenix Suns, Booker, Chris Paul, Aiton, and Michael Bridges, they missed a combined total of 10 games. Whereas LeBron and AD together did not play 17 games. Like they both did not play together for 17 games. So that I think is turning out to be a factor. You think, or am I thinking too much?
You're not, but I here's why I don't think that's going to be the defining factor. Because this is year two of this team, like I mentioned. This team's gone and won the chip together, so they know how to play off of each other. It's now a question of individual rhythm and finding that stroke and getting into match fitness and shape. It's more of that than collaboration, cohesion, and bonding. There's bonding at least between the big two, if not the rest of them. Um, and sure, Aiton and all those guys have played almost all their games together, and they haven't missed that much. But it's not like games together is the primary factor in determining how
Mm-hmm.
well a team plays. It is a factor, but when you've got skill at the level of Anthony Davis and LeBron James, two all-time great number one draft picks, and deservedly so, it covers up for a lot of other shortcomings. So I wouldn't be too worried about that aspect. What I would be worried about is, are they fit? Is it a um, if they choose to turn it on, can they turn it on? Are their bodies going
Mm-hmm.
to allow it to play major minutes if needed? To bump bodies with Aiton if needed for AD? Is that a possibility? If the Lakers need to switch him to a 5, then it's him against Aiton. And
Right.
that's a lot of contact. That's a lot of. Aiton's 23. AD is not exactly old, but he's a little more fragile at this point. Um,
Right.
so there's that angle. But I think the angle that's really frustrating for the Lakers, look at this point, I still don't think the Suns can take them in a 7-game series.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't look likely. Because the biggest reason, despite Devin Booker going off, and he really did look like a young Kobe in game one, and he probably
Mhm.
looked that way for the rest of the series. But despite him going off, the difference maker was Aiton. It was Aiton's
Mhm.
rebounding, it was Aiton causing havoc in the pick and roll, it was Aiton causing havoc in the paint and getting points off in clutch moments. He outdueled and kind of came up on top against Anthony Davis. I don't see that over a 7-game stretch.
Mhm.
Nobody in the league dominates Anthony Davis like that over a 7-game stretch. Certainly not enough to get a win. That's one. Two, the Lakers are like this, and it's frustrating sometimes. They can get complacent. They can become self-entitled, where they're like, we're the defending champs, we're the Lakers, we're on the court, just give us the win. And with Anthony Davis and LeBron, what's the biggest criticism, right? When everyone talks about Jordan wouldn't have done this or Kobe wouldn't have done that, it's that mentality. The league is used to like these psychotic, obsessed with win, just
Right.
brutal assassins. And here are two nice guys that don't really. uh, AD is just too soft. Like LeBron, at times, at least, maybe it's because of his PR obsession. Or I don't know what it is that he comes out aggressively. AD is almost too nice. Like you have to prod him, poke him, stab him, make him bleed, kind of get him into put a few slits on him to make him turn into a raging bull, right? It happened last year too. They were atrocious in the bubble until
Yep.
I think it took Portland winning that game,
Mhm.
and for a bunch of people to say Portland will actually win the series. Some like Charles Barkley predicted a sweep. I think that's kind of what Lakers are like. What's happening in this league? So let's hope it happens in game 2, because if not, it's going to get really tough for the Lakers to come back from a 2-0 deficit. That's when I'll
Well,
say
if,
the fan base has to panic.
okay. Well, if the Lakers needed Charles Barkley to rile them up, he
Yeah, he said
already
it
did
again.
that, saying that nobody's scared of the Lakers this season. I think if they've seen it, I think that should be enough motivation for them to go all out for the win tomorrow.
What
But
is
if they're
that?
going
I
2-0
think he
down, would you
said
be panicking?
I think he said they'll win the series, the Suns.
Well, I said that too, but I wouldn't put it out there like he did. Not to embarrass myself. But that's going to be a fun day, a great day coming up. That's all the time we have for today, and I'll catch up tomorrow and we'll discuss tomorrow's games.
All right, man. Take care.
Bye.